Tony, you write in chapter two about career and you. What does that mean?
The core focus of that chapter, Gary, is if you look at employment surveys, you'll find that over 50% of people identify with their job roles. I'm an accountant, I'm an IT specialist, I'm a business strategist, I'm a compliance officer, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And they take on the attributes of the role. They speak like that person. They dress in corporate formalities. And while that's all well and good, in one respect, what happens to these people, Gary, is one day they lose their job. All of a sudden, everything that went round that job with their identity has gone also, and they find themselves in an identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly the most powerful position to be in. So I say to my clients, really, despite whatever your role or title is, always be yourself.
Yeah.
And the perfect illustration of that was Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, whilst he was the CEO of Apple, never really assumed that title in any formal ways. Steve Jobs was Steve Jobs. He spoke like Steve Jobs. He had his casual form of dress. He would get on stage, share stories, and he was just himself. If they ever sacked him, which they did the first time round, he's not going to experience an identity crisis. He just keeps going as Steve Jobs. And
Yeah.
that's my message to people, just be yourself in the workplace rather than take on these titles. And then when you lose that, your whole identity structure is gone.
What do you do if somebody actually doesn't know who they actually are?
Right, very good question. Well, let me share another story, which I do actually cover in the book. Back in 2019, Gary, I had the opportunity or the need, should I say, to landscape both my front garden and my back garden. So one Saturday morning, one of the people who landscape gardeners who responded to my request to give me a quote arrived at my doorstep. So he quickly surveyed my front garden and then stepped outside the gate and positioned himself on the nature strip. And I said to him, the gentleman's name was Dave. Dave, what are you doing? And he said to me, Tony, before I begin a landscaping job and decide what needs to be done or not done in the garden, I take in the character of the home. And by doing that, that forms my decision in terms of what the garden should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same principle, Gary, applies to your career. Understand your character and let that shape the garden, which is the career. And then if those two are in sync and aligned, then you've got a richer home, a more prosperous home, and a more valuable career. So, to your question, well, how do you go about finding out who you are? So, I got to know Dave quite well as he worked on both my front garden and my back garden. No question that he won the job, obviously. Um, I asked Dave, well, how did you become a landscape gardener? And he said that when he was 8 years of age, the family had a lime tree in the backyard. And that lime tree was on its last knees. It was almost going to die. So one day, Dave's father approached Dave and said, Dave, I'd like to give you a job. I want you to make sure this lime tree doesn't die. So each day, Dave would go up to it. He would water it. He would make sure there was fertilizer and whatever. On really hot days, he might protect it with some sort of cloth or whatever so that the sun didn't destroy it. And from that, Dave's love of gardening emerged. And he recognized that he loved gardening and he was a gardener at heart. And that became his eventual path to becoming a gardener and a landscaper.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, to identify who you are, sometimes it's valuable. And I found this in countless times working with clients. Go back to who you were as a child and connect with that. And that will give you a good indication of what you wanted to be or loved to be as a child, and that really shapes what your career should look like. Does that answer the question, Gary?
Compelling analogies. Wonderful, actually. Very exciting. So, as we come to a conclusion on this chapter, what would you ask your reader to do?
I would ask my reader to go back to potentially their childhood and ask themselves, if you had your time again, particularly if they find themselves in a career, Gary, that doesn't seem to fit who they are. Who did you want to be when you were 12, 14, 15 years of age? And connect with that. And then today, see how you can step into that and use your current career as a stepping stone in the future to become more of who you are rather than playing some role to satisfy the employer.
Perfect.